Call the meeting to order. And before we move on, I'd just like to send season greetings and a Merry Christmas from all of council, some of them that aren't here tonight, and from staff, and hope everybody has a great time over the holidays. Thank you. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
All in favor? Against? Motion carried.
You need a seconder.
Need a seconder. I second that.
Oh, I thought you all heard this. I thought-
No?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Is there any conflict of interest declaration tonight? Seeing none, move on presentations. Seeing none, we'll move on to adoption of the minutes. Regular council meetings, November 13th, 2018.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Special council, November 20th, 2018.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Excuse me.
Motion carried. Committee of the whole meeting, November 27th, 2018.
Slow move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Now, over to business arising from the minute. Asset management policy for approval. Open that up. Would you like to speak on that one, Mr. CAO, Alan Hughes?
Just briefly, that you would have seen this at our last meeting, actually our last regular council meeting, I believe. We didn't make any changes since then. We have been ongoing doing some work with AIM, the organization AIM, who is helping us along with most of the municipalities in the Southwest region to do asset management planning. Councillor, Deputy Warden Muse has attended every meeting, myself and Marcia, Director of Finance, and Hunts, our Director of Public Works. And so at the end, this is one of the many things that we'll be asking Council to review and approve. This policy just, it's guiding principles, like how will Council moving forward decide on how we prioritize infrastructure improvements or new infrastructure projects, and how do we fund what is already in what we already have, what we already own. How are we planning for the future replacement of those assets? So it is a process that is necessary in order for us to obtain gas tax funding. It's one of the new requirements of eligibility for gas tax, and it's nationwide requirement.
So there's no action needs to be taken on that tonight?
That can be approved tonight.
Can be approved tonight, yeah. Also move that we approve the asset management, asset management that we have in front of us. Policy, procedure, policy, yes. Policy.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Next amendment to Mariner Center Agreement. I believe that's to do with board members. Decreasing from 3 appointed at large to 2 from at large and 1 councillor.
We don't have that.
You
No.
skip.
Service awards
Yes, I have
policy
that.
is what I see.
Should be under 5B.
Okay.
Oh, my whole page moved down. Sorry about that. Service award policy.
Right.
We're gonna get the other one sooner or later though.
You get a sneak peek.
Okay, service milestones. And, wow, that covers right up to 40 years.
Yeah, so there was a slight change on that, Warden. We had asked, the last one was, it stopped at 30 years, and what you'll find is there's very little difference between 30 and 40,
Yeah.
other than 1 extra day leave.
Yeah.
Again, the amount was strategic, because you can choose a gift as an employee for that amount of money, for no tax. So we were taking personal tax into consideration when we considered the amount that would be provided as a service award. I guess, getting in slightly into the weeds, I guess, if you purchase a gift on behalf of an employee, it's different than if you pay cash.
Okay.
If you pay cash, then it's taxable. There are very specific rules around gifts
yeah.
for employees,
Oh, me
as
too.
long as it's available to all and it's below an amount. So that would be the only change from the first time you read it. The intent is exactly the same. There are no other changes.
So this is ready for approval.
It is.
Well,
Go ahead, Councillor.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to comment, this is a great policy. I highly thank whoever came up with this or brought this up. This is very deserving. That shows an extra speckle to staff of how appreciative that municipality of Argyle is of their service, and my kudos to whoever brought this up. And I'm glad there's no alcohol, this is cannabis too, but no alcohol that's being given, my preference to what you've got there is very acceptable. I so move that we accept this policy, the employee recognition service reward policy.
We'll second that motion.
We have a mover and a second. And on the question, just so the public knows what we're talking about, it's a certificate of presentation for number of years served, starting at 5, going the whole way up to 40. And for example, year 10, you get a certificate and a gift that valued at $75 and 2 special days of leave. And it follows on through 15, 20 years and so forth, with slight increase as you go along in the gift that you're being awarded. Would that be basically how to describe it in?
I would.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the days off, they're meaningful.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion, all in favor?
aye.
Against? Motion carried. Now, let's hope my page don't jump down again. Councillor stipend and council remuneration on benefits policy. Would you like to brief us on that, Ellen?
I would. So the remuneration policy is a long time coming. We started looking at the council. It's not just council stipend policy. It's also about accountability, meeting attendance, and other benefits that council do or do not are not eligible for. So it does highlight all of that. So one of the issues, of course, that delayed this policy was the federal government's announcement to eliminate the 1/3 non-taxable portion on council stipends. So that changed the water on the beans, I guess, a little bit, because we wanted to look at what other municipalities were doing in response to that. So there was a poll that went out. It was the municipality of Clare that led the poll, and what we saw is the majority are looking to partially increase the stipend in order to recover the federal government's tax grab, which means the stipends in most cases have increased. In some cases, it has not. I would remind council that the reason why we even started this work had nothing to do with this rule. It had a lot to do with the fact that you haven't received any form of increase in, I'd say, about 7 years.
That's right. You're
I'm
right.
going with at least 7.
You're right.
So no one else in the organization gets frozen for that long. I realize it was council's choice to do that.
It was.
But I think, enough time had gone by that it was time for us to kind of re-examine that. So, and we collectively, obviously council and your staff collectively agreed that it was probably better to do by policy anyway. So what this policy is doing essentially is setting your stipends effective January 1st, 2019. And you would be subject to a CPI increase every April. So what would happen is we would adjust to the numbers that you see in this policy, and then in April, we would look at what the CPI or the inflation was from January to December, and we would make that adjustment. So that's how the policy reads now, every April. So if council chooses to not do that because you're increasing in January, you have absolutely that choice, or you can, obviously you can delay the increase to April 1st if you wish, so that it all happens at the same time. That's not what we have in this policy. This policy says effective January 1, because it's the same time as the rule change for the federal government's taxation change. So the stipend increase that is most of the recommendations that are happening across the board is between an 8 and 11% increase to offset some of the costs that are happening from a federal taxation perspective. This increase represents that. It represents the same increase that will be proposed to the municipality of Yarmouth, 11.1. I see it as, you can look at it as a recovery for the income taxes that have been charged on your stipend, or you can look at it as a catch-up for the 7 years that you haven't been paid. So it really depends on perspective. The other things that it does do, however, and I know that most, we're all very sensitive around these types of decisions, and of course, it's absolutely yours to make. The other item here is there's more accountability around council meeting attendance. So it's not just an increase, it's an increase, but also an accountability increase. And this was, I don't recall whether there was consensus around this or not, but there was some thinking that this would be important to show to the community that we're taking the meeting seriously. So the law in the MGA says if you miss 3 regular council meetings in a row without proper leave, you can actually be kicked out as a councillor. That's never happened here. Not to say that we haven't had absences, because we have, for a variety of very legitimate reasons. So what we're saying is if there is a consistent amount of missing meetings, after some point, the stipend would be reduced.
Yeah.
And the policy says, for every meeting beyond 5 missed meetings. So when you think about that, there's approximately 2 meetings a month for 10 months.
Yeah,
So that's, what,
20.
20 meetings? I almost said 50, wow.
Roughly.
Roughly, rounded to 20. And then, 3 or 4 more. We usually have one in the summer, and so it's usually
Usually
between
two.
21 and 22
Two.
meetings, regular and committee of the whole meetings a year. So that represents about 25% of the meetings. 5 meetings is 25%.
Yeah.
So I personally felt like that was a reasonable amount. And it's not consecutive, it's 5. So if you miss 5 between April 1 and March 31 in any particular year, the 6th one you miss, there's a $200 stipend reduction for every meeting you missed. Now, that number doesn't come from anywhere other than our imagination. So if you feel like it's unfair or not fair enough or too hard or too easy, that's really entirely up to you. But I just wanted to highlight that there's an accountability aspect in there. And the last thing that I would say is this doesn't address travel. There's a separate policy for travel,
That's right.
which you've passed.
That's right.
And so if there's any changes in your travel policy, obviously it wouldn't have any impact on this. What this is saying is basically travel is separate.
Yeah,
It's a separate consideration. It does say that you're eligible for our pension plan, which just for everybody's information, it is a voluntary participation, and it's 6% match. So it's 6% of your stipend matched by the municipality. So it isn't a defined benefit program. What's there is what's there. There's no additional obligation on our part or on the taxpayer's part. Medical, dental, and disability is not available to council members and hasn't been ever, but we just wanted to make sure that was clear in policy. And the reason I'm spending so much time on this is because this is the first time you've seen it. And this is not to be approved today because it's just, it is the 7-day notice, so you're not making a decision here, but I would very much appreciate any form of input you might have on this policy, and then I would bring back any revisions for the next meeting.
You got a question? Or
Yeah,
do
I had a question, just, when you're saying, January 1st, that's in this year's fiscal,
That'd be two and a half weeks, 3 weeks.
yeah, which are still in this, in our fiscal budget
Correct.
of 2018-19.
Mhm.
Is there, can we do that before we go into the next, actual fiscal budget?
We can,
You can?
yep.
Okay. The $200, okay, so if you reduce the stipend by $200, let's say that happens, say you could pay that, how would that be taken out? Like $200 right away for the next payroll?
The next payroll would be reduced.
You would reduce your payroll based on the $200 less for the year, or the $200 would be taken out? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I miss 5 meetings, my 6th meeting is in, let's say, in January, okay?
Yes.
So I've been paid this much up until January, all of a sudden, I should have been paid $200 less now because I missed a meeting. How would that come out?
It will come out in the future pay.
In the
Future
future
pay.
pay?
And it's only-
All at once?
Yeah,
All
it's,
at once,
it's
you
only
lose.
one, like, so
Yes.
you miss that, you get into that
Oh,
6th
okay,
meeting,
okay, because that's, yeah.
and you lose the $200.
Right away, off of your next pay?
Yeah,
Okay.
so the next pay would be reduced, and
Yes.
that would be that.
Yes.
You don't, it's not every time.
No, that's what I
It's just for
would-
that one meeting.
That one
you
meeting,
lose.
and then you wouldn't be paid for that one
Yeah.
meeting by $200,
There-
okay.
There is some, so just to follow up on that, there is some logic around the $200.
Yes,
What we looked at was the stipend, and then we said, okay, well, you know, remember the jelly bean video? I choose to forget it sometimes, but the jelly bean video says you're not just doing this as a
Yeah.
counselor,
Yes.
right? You're doing this, you're doing community work, you're doing meetings that are not these meetings, and
Yes.
so it should not be 100% of your stipend, because this is about 25% of your work, maybe
Right.
30.
Right.
So there is a calculation in the back, I didn't
Mhm.
really show it, but there is a calculation that estimates that 200 is
okay,
reasonable.
yeah, no, that's fine.
Councillor Bolt?
Just to be clear, okay, so, you missed 5 meetings, you missed the 6th, you're reduced $200. You missed the next meeting, or you reduce another 200, so.
For each missed meeting, $200. It doesn't like 200, 400, 600, it doesn't.
No,
So,
Eventually, you'll be paying, you know, if you
Yeah.
miss too many, you'll be paying us.
No, what's the matter?
Yeah.
so, and then, yeah, so, I mean, if somebody's sick or something like that, is,
And that's a great point, because we do raise that as an exception.
There is a point in there, yeah.
We say that the absence will not qualify as a missed meeting if the absence is due to attendance to another municipal commitment.
right.
Okay, so you've got 2 meetings and you gotta go to 1, it's not a miss. Bereavement,
Bereavement.
or other qualified leave addressed in the MGA or other policy developed by the municipality. Now, we don't say sick, but I think what we would do if somebody was long-term sick, we'd obviously have to address that. And I think it would be important for council to address it. So, you know, I would suggest that there are other leaves that are all, that, like the MGA, for example, is now looking at maternal leave as a leave that is allowable without you losing your seat. If you're young mother, or I guess a mother with a young child.
And there's
So-
2 in Kings County.
Yep, so there are some policies that are flowing actually from the MGA down that we would have to adhere to, so. But, yeah, the intention is not to ding people for being ill.
Right, okay, no, it's just being clear.
So, I have anybody got a question?
no, I'm fine.
Go ahead, Councillor Sir.
Just to be sure on Kathy's point, so if somebody is sick with the flu, and they called in, so they had missed 5 meetings, they called with the flu, is that addressed here? Because let's face it, somebody's with the flu, I don't wanna catch it from
Yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? How do you?
I think the policy is, I mean, it doesn't address that specifically, but I think we'd have to use our own judgment around whether it was, an eligible.
Yeah, if you broke an ankle or you can't get
Yeah.
up, like Nicole couldn't get up the steps
Yeah.
here
it's-
and she couldn't make the
it's-
meeting.
It's a bit problematic because in order for you to lose the money, you gotta miss 5 other ones.
That's right too, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, very good point, yeah.
So,
That's right.
it's, like, the flu is a great reason to miss a meeting.
I
But
mean, you
like,
got 5 flus to, you know.
you got some convenient flus going on there, so, but I think, and this is something that I get the sense from council that you'd like a little bit more language around illness. And-
Really, I think, I'd feel like it anyhow.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. but-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also it's more of a guideline. You'd have to look at it on a case by case, case by case, because if somebody's long-term sick,
That's
and
right.
the last thing you wanna do is start dinging them $200, and putting the financial burden on them if they've already got enough going on. So I think it'd have to be case by case as to how things work out. And I think as a council, I think we're pretty fair as, if it comes up, if we ever cross that bridge, I think we'd be fair and we'd support the person instead of saying, no, well,
Absolutely
he's
right.
not here or she's not here. Send them, take $200 off their next pay.
That's right.
Yeah,
You know,
certainly the intention of the policy is not to do that.
That's right.
But the intention of the policy is to be clear that, we all have work commitments and all that.
Yeah.
But there has to be a balance, and
That's
if
right.
somebody is not coming to meetings because of work commitments, then at some point the taxpayer probably wants a certain level of accountability.
Exactly.
So we want to balance that, and I think the sickness is something that's missing in this policy. We should
Yes.
probably
Yeah.
extend the language a little bit
Yes,
around
if you
that, so
could,
that you can come back
Yeah.
and decide whether or not it's an improvement. We'll certainly do that.
Another question?
Mr. Chair, yes, another question to Anna. I guess it comes to, when's the next meeting? And it has to do with this, because if we want to pass it by the end of the month, usually we don't have a meeting between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah. If you decide to approve this on the first meeting in January,
Yes.
as is, with the exception of my additions,
Right.
it would be retroactive.
Thank you very much. You've answered my question. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you,
it can be retroactive because the policy says when.
thank you.
Yeah.
So
I'm all set.
so the increase, your suggestion for the stipend, is that basically the extra tax that we would have to pay, is that
Approximately.
approximately? So, actually, the counselor is not gonna take any more after-tax pay home. The extra raise in the stipend is going to Ottawa.
In fact, you might take less,
Might take less,
depending on your tax rate.
depending on if you have other income.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can call it a raise, but it's not a raise. It's keeping up with what's going on in the federal government's tax grab.
It's an increase in cost to the municipality, but the money isn't going to the councillor, it's going
That's
to
right.
Revenue Canada.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
yeah, but.
to Ottawa, you said to Ottawa.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we might get some of it back for something, but who knows?
Yep.
Anyhow, it's just not like we're giving us a big raise, I just want to make
No.
that clear.
No, that's right. Thank you, Richard.
It wasn't our intention to get a raise.
We're not the one that
You're right.
started the ball rolling on
Right.
this. Yeah.
In fact, I don't even like calling it a raise, it's something else.
No, that's right.
Okay, have you had enough information to bring that back in January? or
Yep, and-
Anybody else got anything to add?
If you want to have any other information around what the stipends are, I may or may not have that information because other municipalities are making adjustments on the fly. But if you wished additional information to compare these with other stipends, I can provide you that information before you make a final decision. I know that past councils always like to compare to other
That's right.
local, particularly local councils. So
Clare, Yarmouth, Barrington would be enough, wouldn't it?
Sure. That man, yeah.
I will do that, and so then you'll have that to back up your decision, and
Right.
you may change your mind on the amount. You may, that's entirely up to you. You can make that decision at the next meeting if you wish. But I will get you that information to support the decision. So Clare, Yarmouth, Barrington.
Yeah.
District of Yarmouth, I was thinking. We're all basically the same
Right.
population.
You think you'll be able to get that from Barrington now and others? Might be tough.
He's busy.
Okay, we'll move on to councillor reports. We'll start with Guy on this side.
I attended the meeting with the aquaculture last Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday night. Great meeting, great information from my district. There was several people that were worried about what was going on, but after attending the meeting, Raymond really, Dr. made a good presentation, and there was good info, very good info. And I did answer a few of the people that were concerned, and they're basically happy with what I reported back. I also attended a workshop in Halifax, Leading in the Grey, and it's about councillors, CAOs, staff, what your job is, what you should be doing. There's many gray areas, I guess, that you end up in, and it was about when you're chairing, councillor, or a warden, or deputy warden, CAO, if you're chairing a meeting, processes, giving people a chance to speak, base your facts instead of rumors when you're speaking, and stuff like that. It was very, very interesting. I enjoyed it, and if I can bring stuff back to council that I've learned, I certainly will. Otherwise than that, there was municipal alcohol project, map, and I attended also the waste park meeting. That's it, thank you.
Councillor Muse?
Yeah, I
Deputy
attended this-
Warden Muse, sorry.
I attended the same aquaculture meeting, and it was really good. There was some very, very good information, and there was a lot of clarification on what might have been a little concern for some,
Yep.
but I think it was clarified to people who were there to their satisfaction. And I just came back from a presentation on the bid for the Congrès Mondial, which is there at 5, from 5 to 6, we were there, so, again, you know, they want input from public, not just that Clare Council and Argyle Council wants it. They want to make sure that the more people who can say that they would like to see that, the more chance there is of getting the bid as well, so. Anyway, and they were still there, there was still some discussions going on when we left, but we had to come to this meeting, so that's what I have.
Councillor Brook?
I attended the Yarmouth Industrial Commission, and I went to Nakile. I went to the Christmas tree lighting here, and I had the privilege of giving a certificate of a lady that turned 100 years old in place of Calvin, Alice Surratt, so we wish her a happy birthday.
Councillor Digdon?
I emceed a cake parade down home for a lady, fundraiser for a lady that's going through a hard time with some sickness. Co-sponsored our second annual Digdon and Royal Canadian Legion Branch 66 Children's Christmas Party. Had a great attendance, increase since last year. Worked to help set up and attended the Annis's Gingerbread House and tree lighting down in Pubnico. Annis is a lady that got killed earlier this year in a tragic motor vehicle accident, and her husband used to set up a gingerbread house each year for the children down in the Pubnico area, and they done a lot of work. You really don't know how much work somebody has done on something until you try and take it over and step up and do the work. And her and her husband David done most of the work or all of the work on this themselves. And we as a group down home this year with the West Side Improvement Society, and that we approached the family to see if we could take it over, help them with it. And they said by all means. And a group of ladies sewed up a lot of little bags. They give out treats in this little gingerbread house. It's open each evening in Pubnico from 6 until 9 in front of the presbytere. And also a community Christmas tree was set up this year down there. So it's really going over well. It was a real big turnout when they had the opening of it and the lighting of the Christmas tree. And Anna's his husband, David, lit the tree, and it was very nice. It was very fitting. And presently working on the nativity scene for the St. Peter's Parish Church. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to the warden's report. And as you can see, it was pretty busy. I attended 16 different
Yeah.
meetings, announcements, events. I won't repeat what you guys have already mentioned. Experience Argyle, that was a great success. Nobody
Yeah.
mentioned that. That was an excellent.
Yes.
Carlton River Wastewater Committee, that's not very exciting, but there's a lot of good work going on there. Acadian First Nations, I attended the announcement of the new Shell Dredge in Winter's World, and that was good. I'm glad I went to that.
Good.
Athletic awards, couple Christmas tree lightings, Brad's retirement.
That's right.
That pretty well covers every, the FCN funding announcement was here, attended that. Yep, okay, so we'll move on. And where does that take us? Man, I gotta get a bigger computer screen.
Staff report.
Could it be you're getting
Staff
younger?
report, I was hoping I'd miss
Getting
that one,
younger.
but here we go.
Warden, your honesty never disappoints. I won't mention aquaculture because I think it was addressed by council. Septic tank project, I think in the Westport, it's essentially complete. We're just finishing up, tidying up the last of it. By the end of February, everything will be submitted and we should be done with that. There is a new funding announcement for new fundings that is on the agenda, so we'll talk about that then. Municipal admin building, so we received the tenders on the building. The architects are working with the one qualified bid. The work is ongoing. There's not a whole lot to, there's not a whole lot to report on that at this point. I imagine it'll be early January before we are able to say a whole lot about where we're headed with that. So there is some work happening on the part of the bidder and the architect. And we did, of course, receive confirmation that the FCM application was successful, which was a $3 million loan and the $450 grant. But we did also submit, and two of these I know that we mentioned, but the third one I know we didn't. So on Thursday of the week before, we were made aware of, by a former employee that there might be some funding available under the Natural Resources Canada fund, specialized funding for innovation in wood construction. We have submitted a $400,000 request, and that would be a grant. So we managed to make the deadline. We had a lot of time to spare, approximately 12 minutes. So that's
I love it, I
that's
love
a
it.
ton of time. There's so much you can do in that time. So so we were able to do that thanks to our architects, Graham in particular, who started the application, and myself that finished it. And I had help with staff, and we managed to do it. So and it is, I mean, it's in the system. That's all we know. And there's two accessibility fundings that are outstanding, one for 400 and one for 100. We would not qualify for both. We would only qualify for one. They're both the same federal funding. Obviously, the whole reason why we did the building, at least the starting point, was this whole concept of accessibility. So it seemed quite fitting that
Right.
we would apply for that funding. So that the timing just worked, and we made those applications as well. Best case scenario, which would be ridiculous, we'd get $800,000 out of those applications plus the 450 grant from FCM. We would be very, very, very pleased with that, I'm sure. Charlene's report on housing, I don't have much to add other than what Charlene says in hers. Rural internet, It does say presentation on this topic tonight. That presentation was moved. So Evan Nemeth from the Wren will be coming to make a presentation when the information is ready. Some of it depends on Develop Nova Scotia, who is in charge of the funding for rural internet. I've officially resigned from the Airport Corporation on November 30th. I can tell you, it doesn't feel like anything has changed, because there's no replacement for me just yet. We are working on that, and I'm hoping to come up with a solution for that very soon. I did want to mention that we budgeted 24,000 for management service revenues, but our actual will be closer to 36. So that'll be a budget gain for the year.
CEO Brooks could be arranging some kind of a get-together with all the councillors, possibly a senior report, and that's with the airport. Is there something she wants to get? It says here, who wishes to have a day-long session,
Oh.
examines options for future airport.
Right, that,
Would that,
that was from thanks for raising that. So the airport board made a motion to, that we would make arrangements to have a facilitator come and speak to both councils and the board around a shared vision for the future.
yes.
So, I've been presenting as interim interim airport manager, I've been presenting options for future, but they wanted something broader. They wanted to do like a day session where you would do, not strategic planning, but priority setting and visioning and kind of taking a look at what they want to do moving forward. I think it's important for council to be engaged in that because this is our last year of funding and we need to know,
That's what
everybody
I-
needs to know where we're headed. So I mentioned Brooks because she is actually doing that. She's arranging for that person.
Good,
So.
thank you.
I can confirm that the fire department seems to have made an agreement to purchase the land that they are looking to purchase. There's no official transaction that occurred, but I believe that they are moving towards that, so that could happen quickly.
You're talking Neilbrook, right?
I'm talking Neilbrook, yeah. East Pubnico water tank, work is ongoing, and and that's probably it. I did attend a meeting to discuss regional EMO, and the warden attended that as well. And just an update on our municipal clerk position. It's been advertised on the local Vanguard and on our social media. And I did get a career beacon up and running. That's
No response yet from anybody, or are you getting,
I am receiving resumes. I've received about 9.
oh, wow.
Oh, have you?
Career Beacon made a big difference,
Yes.
I have to say. So, and a lot of them are, if this is important, a lot of them are local or in the area, so they'd have an idea what
Right.
we're, what the
Yeah.
position
Yes.
is, right? Rather than somebody from another province or even another country may not have as much of an understanding of that position, so that's important. And we did extend the deadline, however, because the Career Beacon went to January 5th, we couldn't do it any earlier. So it went to January 5th, so we're gonna extend the deadline, because the deadline is tomorrow, that was advertised, and so we're gonna extend that, just to make sure we get enough people.
Yeah,
Now, we have 9 people, it's actually not a ton for that position.
no,
I
Oh,
still.
is that right?
Yeah, it's not, I mean.
Oh, I get you.
And so we'll see what happens. We'll, tomorrow I expect to receive some because our announcement to extend the deadline hasn't, probably hasn't reached everyone. So we'll get some tomorrow at the last minute, but it isn't actually last minute.
No, no.
And we weren't gonna make a decision, I don't believe, before the new year anyway, so it's not too bad. But we are, we all know Chris was a hard worker, and
Yeah.
having one less person in the office is having an
Make a
impact for
difference.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, and it is a busy time of year, so it is,
Right.
so it is having an impact. So, so the rest of the report, I'll just, I know you've had the chance to read it. I won't go through every item. I usually go through mine in particular. Any questions on any of it?
Did you hear, looking at the dispatch, somebody said that they thought one of them had already found another job, resigned maybe? No?
I haven't
You
heard.
haven't heard anything?
I have not heard.
I'm not sure, it's just,
Hmm.
so
It's-
I'm not sure, I'm sure they're looking. If anything comes up, they know this is probably inevitable, it's gonna happen, so.
On your report, you mentioned the EMO, the joint meeting that we attended. That is for amalgamation of the two.
Oh, I see, okay.
The two units, so there'll be one EMO for the county.
Yeah.
So that's well underway now, there's people working on that and getting the policies all in place and so forth and so on. So that's what, I was gonna mention that earlier and I forgot and Ellen brought it up, so thank you.
Great.
Strategic priority topics, nothing under that for decision. Reduction of opening bid for tax sale in February 2019. I believe get this open, I believe there's 3 properties you want to lower the opening bid on.
I do, or we do, yeah.
And everybody's had a chance to look at this. Any discussion on this? There's one in East Kent, there's one in Wedgeport, and one in Plymouth. And would you like to explain the circumstances?
Sure. So first of all, we never consider reducing an opening bid unless it's gone to tax sale multiple times. We don't necessarily, sometimes when it goes to tax sale once and it doesn't get a bid, the next time it can. So we don't rush to do this. However, we do want the property to be productive again. In 2 of the 3 examples, the reason why that we haven't had any bid is quite simply because the bidders didn't want to pay for the unsightly cleanups that were on those 2 properties. So for instance, the one in East Kempt, the outstanding taxes is $10,800, and the outstanding taxes in the second example is $9,000. Both of which it's all or almost all due to the unsightly cleanup. So our objective is obviously to recover as much as possible because we would consider it a loss if we don't. However, we also understand it's a bidding process, and if your starting bid is too high, you don't get any bids. We want bids, and it's the only way to get those properties back into productive use for the municipality and for the community. So.
What does tax OS, what DOS?
Outstanding.
Tax outstanding. I just.
Oh, okay, I said, well, I
made
thought
a
the
little-
slack, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Wasn't sure.
I should have written it out.
No,
But,
no, got it.
So what we're looking at now is, and so there's a third one as well, and the property is very small. So there was multiple years where it's gone to tax sale, and the tax outstanding didn't make sense compared to the assessment. So the council, so under MGA 141.3, the council may direct the treasurer, which would be me, as to what constitutes an acceptable minimum tender or bid. If the treasurer is of the opinion that the property might not realize sufficient to cover the outstanding taxes, interest, and expenses. So I am definitely of the opinion, based on the evidence presented to us during tax sales, that these will not likely recover that amount. So a reduced opening bid does not mean that that's the only amount that we're going to collect. As any other auction, if you can get a bid in, the bidding war can actually get you to that number in the end. But that hasn't been our experience, but it's not impossible. So I guess what I'm suggesting is included, and on the East Kent property, taxes outstanding $10,800. I'm suggesting opening bid $5,500. The Wedgeport property, taxes outstanding $9,000, revised opening bid to $3,800, and the last one, which is in Plymouth, taxes outstanding $1,700. Suggested reduce or opening bid to $350. So this is not based on market value assessments. It's based on us taking a look at the assessment, how much acreage there is there, what is the condition of the property. We have information on each of them. So for instance, the first one is the assessment $70,300. So you'd think, geez, you know, outstanding tax is 10,000, should be able to collect that. Well, the assessment's way out of whack. And there is a house that has been vacant a long time, it's quite dilapidated. So anybody's gonna take on that property, not only are they gonna pay for the cleanup of the barn that was on the location, they may actually have to clean up the residential home. So yes, it's 4.87 acres in beautiful East Kent, but there is a cost to get it back to where it needs to be. So that's the logic behind the reduced bids. And again, you know, if we do that and we restore a beautiful property such as the one in East Kent, somebody might build a beautiful home there and be productive again. So I have those are my recommendations, and open it to either a motion to agree or a discussion or whatever you wish.
Councillor
I'll add the one I see the one in Plymouth went up 5 times with no bids. That's, is there anything they can do, because it's not even 100 by 100, because 100 by 100 is 10,000 square feet, so that's a very small lot.
That's right. So
Can anything be built on something like that?
probably not. So usually what happens is, what we usually do is, nobody's interested because it's too high, right? Because you can't really do anything to the property.
Right, oh, yeah.
So oftentimes what happens, those smaller properties get picked up by the adjacent landowner,
I get you.
but they're not gonna pick it up for
Yes.
$1,700 if it's only worth,
I got
right?
you.
So,
Makes sense.
so typically we reduce the price sufficient enough that the neighbors might think about putting in an opening bid
Gotcha.
or even a competitive bid. That would be great.
Right on. Makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions? We have a suggested motion on the 3 properties as named off by CAO Alan Hughes.
Yeah, I'll move that the opening bids be adjusted for the year 2019 tax sale for the following properties as follows. Number 01024035, opening bid of 5,500. Number 01289721, opening bid of 3,800, and 03776964, opening bid of 350.
I'll second that motion.
Any more discussion?
Question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Okay, now we're down to the Mariner Center agreement. And we'll deal with that now. And I believe it's to restructure the board from 2 appointees and 1 elected from each council instead of 3 appointed and no councillors. And
That's correct.
so,
Yeah, it's based on a regional meeting and regional discussion with, I believe, the wardens and deputy wardens and mayors and deputy, that they felt strongly that they should be closer to the decision-making of the very important asset. So it isn't because they dislike the board members, it's because they want to be closer to the decision-making.
I so move that we, the amendment to the Mariner Center agreement will be accepted as presented.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Against? And perhaps that motion carried, perhaps in January we can discuss members, or, because I assume we're gonna have to take 1 off to replace,
Yeah, we'll have to,
remove 1 to make room for a councillor.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking of volunteering, you can let us know in January.
One of the ways that some people do it is they look at seniority, but they look at it as opposite as you would expect, right? Those that serve longest on the board would be asked, okay, you've served your time, because oftentimes board members have a sunrise and a sunset. So that can be what you decide to do. That's typical of what is done, but unless you get like a volunteer, yeah, because they want turnover typically at the decision-making level.
Makes sense.
Okay, we'll move on to Nakile Home for Special Care, request for tax exemption, and this is something that's been going on roughly 5 years, I believe.
Ever since the new
Yeah.
addition.
The new addition.
The new, yeah, I was there at the time when it was initially brought up and asked for. So this is just a continuation of what's been going on for the past few years. Does anybody have something they'd like to speak on?
I can make a motion. I'll move that Nakile's request for cap tax at 25,000 be approved.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Infrastructure funding, call for applications. And I see we're allowed to pick, well, I had a discussion with Ellen yesterday, and it's listed here what basically qualifies, and look at that, there's only 2 that actually qualify. So there's no decision on picking and choosing out of a number to get only 2.
Yeah, I guess the only choice of council would be that, first of all, one of them is regional, so even if we wanted it, if nobody else wanted it, we may not put in an application.
Right.
But the only other decision is whether or not we want to continue with the phases of Wedgeport. Certainly, the motion is worded purposely the way that it is, in the sense that we would prepare, that the motion is that based on council priority, staff would prepare an application for the Wedgeport Phase 3 project for council's consideration and reach out to our partners for the Industrial Commission to assess interest in the regional application for funding for the potable water project for Domtex. However, you may decide that you don't want to move forward with that application. So I guess what I'm saying is you don't have to decide today whether or not you're going to apply for funding for the Wedgeport Septic Tank Phase 3 project. What I would like is an understanding that you have intentions of doing that, and so that we can start the ball rolling on the application. You can always change your mind on that. I realize none of the Wedgeport representatives are here, and I also recognize that while the Wedgeport septic tank replacement project was a priority, 2 years ago when we started the project, it's not absolutely listed as a phase 3 absolute. So like there was never a decision from council that said we're going to continue this project. So that's why I'm being careful about it. Otherwise it would be like, well, of course we're going to apply. It's your priority. We're going to apply for it. We're going to get somebody else to pay for it. So that's the only hesitation I had as your staff. I wasn't sure what you wanted to do. I want to talk about that particular project just a little bit more. It has a lot of benefits because it's customizable. So you can apply for $1 million and do 50, let's say. I'm just throwing that number out there. Or you can, and then if you're not accepted for that $1 million, you can actually say, well, all right, we'll take 700,000 then, and we can customize the job to do less of what we're doing. And Hans can confirm this, but we're almost at 40. I think we're at 37 or 36 on the waiting list.
Oh, on the waiting list?
So the waiting list is almost as large as our project.
As a project, yeah.
Yeah, so, and those are only people that know about it and like, I can't wait to get on this project. So that doesn't even include some people that really should be on the project that haven't put their name in, right? Because there are still properties that are polluting.
And it could also include out of those 36 or 37 that would not qualify for one either, right?
That is correct. So just because you're on a waiting list
Doesn't mean that they
you
qualify to get
qualify.
I get you.
So if you've got a well-run, if your septic system is running well, you don't get a new one.
That's right.
So-
Great point, Danny.
Yeah, so the first step is the engineers go in and establish whether it's failed or failing or old. And then if it is, then they go through the process. So
We actually have that information already from the 2012 review, that we have a detailed map of entire upper and lower Wedgeport, showing every property that is in dear need of upgrade of new sewers. And then there's also sewers that are functional and don't need.
Yeah.
So we'll review that, and if we receive the funding, if we're going forward with this, we'll review this in detail and prefer the applications that actually needs.
Yeah.
I think it's a project that's worked well for us. That's definitely worked well for the people down there and for the community as a whole, really, because you're definitely cleaning up, areas and land and stuff like that where stuff before this would just be running freely in some cases. And I'd like to see the project keep going myself personally,
Same here, Glenn,
you know,
I'm with you on that, yeah.
so.
And Alan, doesn't that just, that's one of the ones that qualifies, right?
Yeah,
Really one of the few, and we wouldn't wanna miss
no.
the ball on
Well,
getting some funds for that.
Especially, and I would add to that, like
Yeah.
I agree with that. I mean, it's not my decision, obviously,
No, no.
but I agree with you entirely. And the reason why I would say that is the only cost of the municipality of Argyle is our resources. It's 73 to 75% covered by federal and provincial government, and the remainder is paid by the resident.
Oh, yeah, that's right,
So,
too.
so there, so our concern would be, do we have enough, staff to manage it after it's installed?
Yeah.
And do we have the staff and the resources, necessary to manage the project when it's being put in? So there's the capital, and then there's the operating.
That's right.
So, I mean, we have, Louis, who recently passed his exams for wastewater level 1, which is great news for us. So he would be, you know, designated as responsible for that. And keeping in mind that this is a septic system project. This is not a wastewater, project that has to be washed all the time. It's a septic system that has to be monitored once a year, maybe pumped once a year, maybe pumped every 5 years, depending on the usage and also the type of septic tank that's been installed. So really, from our perspective, the other benefit that it brings to us as a municipality is that in some cases, people can't sell their homes because they don't have a septic system that's
I get you.
appropriate.
I
So,
get you.
so you're actually increasing the value of the home, which increases
Tax.
the taxation revenue that would otherwise be missed if you didn't have this project. Now, it's not a big amount, but it's
But
something,
still,
it's something to consider. So, certainly, we've always seen it as a very, very important project, and it was a priority for Wedgeport since 2001.
Yeah,
And it's been on the
Absolutely.
agenda since the 80s.
Yes.
is that right? Okay, Richard, you've been here, yeah.
It was there in 91, and it's been there every year ever since, and it was
Ever
there
since.
before that.
It's been a problem, many,
Yeah.
many years.
And Hans, you'd like to speak?
Yeah, I just had a brief conversation with the Department of Municipal Affairs and kind of explored the option if we were eligible for this application. Because this is a different funding application than what we had applied before, or what was approved before. So this is a complete different package. But we're still eligible for, if we continue this project, because it would be a continuation of the project. We're still allowed to go forward with the application, so we're still eligible for future funds. So it's not a wasted time.
Right,
So
great.
is it in
Great
order,
stuff.
Dignan?
is it in order to make that motion this evening? Okay, I'd like
Oh,
to
yeah.
move that the staff, based on council priorities, prepare an application for Wedgeport Phase 3 project for council's consideration, and reach out to our partners in the Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission to assess interest in a regional application for funding for the Domtex potable water project.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. I was thinking at the same time I was talking, we have a industrial commission meeting on Monday night, right?
That's right.
Kathy? You'll be
17th
on
or 18th.
vacation next week, so send me something you'd like to,
Will do,
send me an email on, and I'll bring it up,
will do.
exactly what you want me to say. Okay. Other business, new policy, winter clearance standards.
Was there a problem, Hans, or you just thought it'd be?
Well-
I mean, I didn't think there was a problem, I never heard anybody complain, but,
No, there was no severe problems, there was a few complaints once in a while.
yeah,
Staff had a lot of questions, and actually this idea came from staff itself, saying we should have a policy in place, so we made the efforts and use
good,
other musical templates for this policy. So this is a bit of a, this policy is written with more in mind, so it's already more in the policy than we actually have on need currently, but,
Down the road.
So this is first reading, this is first notice.
Correct, so it
We
would,
can pass this in January when we start getting snow.
yes. I imagine it's not gonna stop, the staff from plowing. I think they can plow without the policy. We did last year. I think, so it's really good, just so if, you know, it's really good for the residents as well. Like, it sets an expectation, right? You know, like
Yes.
Department of Transportation does it, and whether you like their expectation or not, at least it's documented.
You know.
And you can set your standard, and you know what, if you don't meet it, then you can hold yourself accountable, right? If you don't draw something in, I was gonna say sand, but
And the snow.
in the snow.
The
then,
snow, yeah, the snow.
you know, so it keeps us all doing it properly. So I thank Hans for doing that.
Yeah, great.
The policy is 100% the work of the Public Works Department.
So we'll vote on that in January.
This is just,
Yeah.
We're not gonna make any changes, this is a staff policy that they've come up with.
Straightforward.
Yeah, straightforward. And the next item is just a list of the roads
That's right.
and sidewalks that are gonna be covered under that policy. We'll move on to correspondence and for information, the RIN CEO report. Any questions on that? We have a new RCMP regional staff member, she's gonna introduce herself. Tax and other receivable comparisons for November.
Mr. Chair.
Yes?
Alain, how do you feel about, when I look at this 696,000 this year compared to 636 last year? I think it's, you know, in revenues and receivables, it seems like we're behind a bit.
There would be one reason. If you look at the top of the page where you see water lending,
Oh, yeah.
so there's an increase of
70,
almost exactly 70,000 there. So if you take that out of the equation, we're actually ahead.
you've answered my question, thank you, that's perfect. Yeah. This is a good report, I like when you send that out, it gives us an idea of what's going on, yeah.
I think what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna want to attach this with the committee of the whole, with
Really?
the financial. So, I mean, I'm completely fine showing it to you at any time, but typically what happens is it comes in like the day after the month end. So I typically go, put it on the next meeting. But I think this actually belongs with your committee of the whole examination of financial statements.
does.
So you can tie everything in
Together.
as opposed to pieces, so.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Next one is the Western Counties Regional Library Board Minutes, October. Amendments to the Nova Scotia Building Code. We got this late this afternoon. Is there something there you want to explain, or is that pretty straightforward?
The building code?
Yeah. It's the deal.
Basically, certainly our building official, John Sullivan, thought it was a very positive change. What it allows is for a simplified, enables a smaller construction, so it enables smaller residential
Mini
homes.
homes,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, mini-ish homes. And it does, I guess, loosen the rules around cottages, so it's not as complex as other inspections. He saw it as a step forward in development and acknowledging that the needs of people now isn't necessarily the bigger homes, it's moving a different direction. So certainly he would have recommended a positive response to these changes to you. I would do the same, and you can choose to make that an official letter to the building official, to the, actually the Department of Municipal Affairs, or you can choose to say nothing. Well, it's really up to you. I realize this is not, it's kind of very, I should say, very, very specific to the complex rules of building code. But if you like the idea of being able to do that kind of development, certainly they would appreciate hearing good and bad. So if you think that that's a good option, then you can certainly give us the authority to write a letter to say that.
I think that's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Somebody wanna make that a motion?
I'll make it a motion,
I'll second it.
cause I see it's got a lot to do with tiny homes and stuff like that, and you've got people starting to build them around and thinking about building them, stuff like that, so it's good to see things progressing some,
Yeah.
You're all clear on that, are you, Ally?
I am. I will write a letter of support on behalf of council for the changes.
Not very often we have a motion under correspondence, but
Sure.
Yeah?
we have one tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Financial requests, I see there's none. Agenda topics for the next meeting or notice of motion by councillors? Okay, question period. Hawks, got any questions? Anything on Facebook, Alec?
No questions.
No questions.
Just very kind, Merry Christmas greetings
Thank you.
from Margaret Amani.
That's my neighbor.
Well,
There you
she's
go.
watching. She's watching. She's watching you today.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hi, Margaret.
Everybody wave.
Hey,
You
Margaret.
can do that later when you get home.
Okay, now we have a in-camera session for a legal matter.
Slow move to go in camera.
We have a motion to go in
Second.
camera. All in favor?
Aye.
Night, against?
Night.
Thank you.
The red light's out?
Red lights up.